Hello, my name is Emma, and today we are going to talk about English in the workplace. So many of you might work in an English environment. Maybe you have a job where everybody speaks English. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to improve your listening and your speaking if you're working in a place that is an English environment. We're going to, first of all, talk about some of the common problems English language learners have when they work in an English workplace. And then I'm going to give you some tips and strategies to solve these problems or to make you more confident and comfortable during meetings, when making small talk with coworkers, or when doing other activities that involve listening and speaking. I also, before we begin, wanted to thank my colleagues, Tatiana, Fabiola, Hanada, as well as Gabriela. My colleagues really helped me to come up with these lesson ideas because they are all people who are using English in a workplace environment when it's not their first language. So thank you so much for your help with this video. So one of the biggest problems people who are learning English have when they work in an English environment is they have a difficult time understanding and listening during meetings. So I want to first talk about this problem and then give some tips on how to deal with this problem. So the reason it's difficult when you're in a meeting and English is not your first language is there are usually a lot of people talking during meetings. You have to listen to different accents. Different people have different words they might use. So this can be very challenging. Another issue is there can be a lot of other information in meetings. So you're concentrating on the English, but you're also trying to understand, what the meeting's about, maybe things about the company. So your brain is concentrating and working very hard during meetings. So what can you do to help yourself understand better during meetings? Well, my first tip is that if you can, you should prepare for the meeting in advance. One way to do this is by using the agenda. So an agenda is when you're sent the plan for the meeting. The agenda is the plan for the meeting. It will tell you what will be discussed. What is the point of the meeting? Who is going to say things at the meeting? That sort of information is in the agenda. So if somebody emails you an agenda, look at the agenda. Think about the agenda and think about what might be discussed. By thinking about these things in advance, you're preparing your brain to accept the information during the meeting. Another thing you can do is sometimes you might have readings or slides sent in advance of a meeting. It's always good to read whatever is sent to you about a meeting to prepare for it. Again, this is really important if English is not your first language because it gives you more time to think about the information. That is one key strategy. Prepare for the meeting in advance. And if you don't know what's going to be talked about, if there's no agenda, no slides, you can also try to predict what might be discussed. So think about, why are they calling this meeting? What might be discussed? Even by just thinking about it, you're starting to prepare your brain for the meeting in advance. Okay, so my second tip is to learn about key meeting words, so words you will hear about meetings, as well as understand how meetings often are organized. They might be culturally different in North America or England compared to what you're used to in your country. So by understanding some of the key words you might hear in a meeting, it can prepare you to understand what is happening. So a lot of learners don't know this word, housekeeping. You might see this word and you might think, house. Okay, they're talking about housekeeping in this meeting. I don't understand. Well, housekeeping is a word we often use during meetings. or during presentations. If you see the word housekeeping, what it means is that the person who is speaking is sharing information about the meeting and what will happen. So they might talk about the agenda when they're talking about housekeeping. They might talk about details like how long is the meeting, where the bathroom is, what time lunch is. During housekeeping, they might ask you to do something, like if you are doing a meeting on Zoom, they might ask you to turn off your microphone. So these types of things are talked about during housekeeping. They might talk about the rules of the meeting. During housekeeping, they tell you what you can expect during the meeting and just different rules to make sure the meeting runs smoothly. So if you hear the word housekeeping, it does not have to do with a house in this situation. It has to do with telling you what to expect during the meeting. Usually housekeeping is done at the beginning of a meeting. Another word you might hear that you might not know is takeaway or take-homes. So again, you might see the word home and think, oh, what does this have to do with the house? It has nothing to do with the house. When we're talking about takeaways or take-homes, what we're talking about is at the end of a meeting, sometimes they will tell you key points to remember. So at the end of a meeting, if somebody says, here are the takeaways, that word means, listen, this is important. Remember this. So if you hear the word takeaway, pay close attention. If you hear the word take home, pay close attention. That information is going to be important. You might also hear the word action item. If you hear the word action item in a meeting, this is another important word because an action item is something people have to do something about. So it's, for example, if I say, here's the action item in the meeting, it means after the meeting, somebody must do something. So action item means the plan. What will different people do? So if somebody says, okay, Emma, here's the action item for you, I know, okay, this is what I need to do after the meeting. So always listen for the word action item, takeaway, take home. And just in case you're confused, we've also talked about housekeeping and what it means for meetings. So now let's look at the next tip to help you during meetings in English. Well, for my third tip, I recommend you review the minutes, if there are minutes. This might be a new word for you. Sometimes during a meeting, somebody takes the minutes. This does not have to do with time. Minutes in this situation means someone takes notes about the meeting. They write a summary about what happens during the meeting. So they might write the date, who went to the meeting, what was discussed, what were the action items or the plans for people to do after the meeting. So if you hear someone say, oh, Emma's taking the minutes, or George is taking the minutes today. If you hear the word minutes, that's great news because it means that there is going to be a summary of what is discussed in the meeting. And so even if you don't understand everything, you can look at the minutes later to understand more. Some places do not take minutes, so it's not every meeting where you will be able to get the minutes, but some meetings, minutes are available. So if they're available, use them. You can ask, will someone take the minutes during the meeting? Or if you think someone's taking the minutes, you can ask, where are the minutes? Is there a file that we're keeping the minutes in? Will the minutes be emailed after the meeting? So it's good to know where is the location of the minutes. Again, the minutes can really help you understand what's happening after the meeting. So my fourth tip is, if you can, try to find someone friendly to help you with your understanding during meetings. So you can call this person your meeting friend or your meeting buddy. It's just somebody where after the meeting, you can ask them if you have any questions or you didn't understand something. Just remember that it's good to do this after the meeting, not during. It can come across as rude if during a meeting you start talking to somebody. So it's better to wait till the end of the meeting to check your understanding. Another thing you can do is, depending on where you work, if people are friendly and your boss is friendly and you feel comfortable and safe, you can always ask them during the meeting. You can always confirm what you heard or double check what you heard. So these are two great sentences you can use. You can say, oh, I just wanted to double check. This is what I understood. Am I correct? Or I just wanted to confirm that this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what was said. So you can always say back your understanding. And that way, if you made a mistake or you didn't understand something, they can tell you there. Now, I wouldn't do this in every workplace. I would only do this if I trust my coworkers and I feel comfortable in the meeting environment. There are certain places where maybe people are not friendly, where I would not do this. So pay attention to how people act in your workplace, and if you feel comfortable, this might be something you can do to help you understand better during meetings. The second problem I see happen a lot during meetings to people who are learning English is they are suddenly put in the hot seat, or they are put on the spot. These might be new expressions for you. When you are in the hot seat or you are put on the spot, it means someone asks you a question, but you did not have time to prepare. So you're uncomfortable because suddenly there's a question and you don't know what to say. You're in the hot seat. You're on the spot. Maybe you didn't even understand the question. That happens a lot, especially for people who are learning a language. So what do you do if suddenly your boss asks you a question during a meeting and you don't know what they said? Well, there's a couple of things to do. The first thing you should do is try to stay calm. It's okay if you didn't hear the question. It happens. Don't panic. What you can simply say is, oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. So missed means you didn't hear the question. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Could you please repeat the question? So that's the first thing to do. Just apologize and ask for the question again. Now I will tell you what to do if you need more time to answer the question. So one thing you can do is what we call buy time. That means that it's a request to get more time to answer properly. So, for example, you can ask, oh, could you come back to me? I want to think about it for, another moment. Could you come back to me? So people do this during meetings, and then they might ask another person the same question, and then you have time to understand what the question really is. You can also be honest and say, I didn't quite understand the question. Could you come back to me? So those are two responses you can say. You can also offer a follow-up. So what I mean by this is, if you're really not understanding what's happening and you know you're not going to understand, you're so panicked and you can't think of anything, you can always say something like, I don't have the details right now, or I don't have the answer right now, but I'll get back to you. So this is a polite way to say, I don't know, but I will tell you later. So again, it's very stressful when you're in a meeting and somebody asks you a question and you don't understand the question. So it's a good idea to practice these types of responses, so at least these responses come out easily for you. Okay, Another tip you can do in order to help you become better with meetings is join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a public speaking club. They have different chapters or different groups around the world, and they teach you how to be a better public speaker. I myself was in Toastmasters many years ago, and I loved it. One of the things I remember they would do is something called in the hot seat, where they would throw a ball at you and ask you a hard question. And then you had to come up with a response very quickly. They do this because they want to give you practice for those moments where you don't know what to say in a meeting. So you don't panic. Again, practice makes perfect. So Toastmasters can be a really great organization to help you get that practice with speaking during meetings. Another benefit of joining something like Toastmasters is you can learn meeting words. So for example, you'll hear in Toastmasters, they use the words minutes, housekeeping, and many of these other words that you will hear in an English workplace as well. So if you have the time and the money, Toastmasters is a great organization. I do not work for Toastmasters, so but I'm telling you that I personally found it helpful. Okay, so the third problem that many English language learners have when they're in an English-speaking workplace is just all the vocabulary and the new words that they keep encountering. Okay, so there's so many work words, so many idioms, so many slang expressions that, even if you are an advanced learner of English, in an English workplace, it can still be very overwhelming. There can be a lot of new words every single day. So here are some tips on how to deal with all this new vocabulary. The first tip I have is please be aware that in English, a lot of words or expressions have multiple meanings. So they have more than one meaning. This is really true with workplace English. So for example, I remember this word historically. My coworker was telling me about this the other day. She said that where we work, we use this word all the time, historically, and then somebody will say something. The way we're using this word at my workplace is to talk about our company and things we used to do. So we might say, oh, historically, our company did this. Now we're doing this. So for my coworker, she heard the word historically and she was thinking, oh, like ancient history, like Rome, ancient China, that's what she thought for historically. But we use it to mean something our company did in the past. So this is just an example of how you might hear a word and you might get confused because it's being used in a different way. Another example is ballpark. You might see the word ballpark and think, ballpark. Ballpark. This must have to do with sports. It does have to do with sports, but in the office, we have a lot of sports expressions we use to talk about office work and just work things in general. So when we talk about ballpark in an office or in a workplace, we actually mean like a rough number estimate. It's like approximately. So for example, if I had to tell you the population of Canada, I don't know what it is. Ballpark number I would think would be about 35 million. So again, this is just an estimate, a rough estimate. I'm not certain. So we use ballpark when we're giving numbers that we're not sure about. So my main point is that pay close attention to the words that are being used and always remember they might have a different meaning than what you might think. My second tip is that it's important to pay attention for the frequently repeated words at your workplace. You will probably notice patterns. This person always uses this word in this situation. That person always says this word. So if you keep hearing the same words repeated, those are probably words that you should learn. So pay attention to the repeated words. The third tip that can be helpful is to watch different shows, TV shows, movies, streaming shows about workplaces. Now, if you're doing this, the first thing I would say is think about if you want to learn about workplaces in England or workplaces in the USA, because the workplace culture is different. So if you are working in England, I recommend watching workplace shows that take place in England. If you are working in North America, I recommend you watch workplace shows about North America that take place there. And it's the same with Australia and Ireland and, other countries as well. So, for example, some popular shows you might want to check out is The Office. The Office has a lot of great vocabulary. It's a comedy, so you can't take it seriously, but it's a good show to listen for workplace English. Suits is another great show for workplace English. The Good Wife, Parks and Recreation. If you're in England or in Britain, the IT Crowd has a lot of great vocabulary. So what you can do is watch these shows and pay attention for the workplace vocabulary they use. Okay, and my fourth tip, the most important tip, is check out engvid.com. We have many teachers from England as well as from North America who have different lessons on workplace topics. So you can learn a lot of vocabulary from engvid.com. You can watch my videos, but you can also watch some other teachers' videos on different workplace expressions. There's often listening activities as well. So it's a great resource for you to check out. And it's a great way to prepare yourself for these situations where you need to understand English in the workplace. So thank you so much for watching today. I know it's hard when you are in a workplace environment and English is not your first language. This is a very difficult situation to be in. So please take care of yourself. Give your brain lots of rest. Be nice to yourself. You're doing something that's difficult and you should be proud of yourself. I'm very proud of you for doing this. So thank you so much for watching. You can take my quiz at www.engvid.com to practice what you learned here and to make sure you understand the tips I gave today. So thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care.